to Before It's Too Late, discussing advanced planning. My name is Charlene Tonaidin, and as a program associate at Keiro, I work to improve the lives of older adults and their caregivers in the Japanese American community through classes and events such as this one. For the past few months, the Keiro programs team worked with the Little Tokyo Service Center's Changing Tides, a mental health advocacy organization for young adults, to produce this event. Our organizations would like to thank the Orange County Buddhist Church's Project Kokoro for graciously sponsoring the venue, as well as the dozens of people who donated when registering. Your support is greatly appreciated. The idea for this panel grew out of a need we saw in our community. While it is recommended that everyone over the age of 18 has advanced planning documents in place, we learned that many of our community members do not know what these documents are, do not have such documents prepared, or have not discussed them with loved ones. We hope that this panel discussion of community members and professionals inspires you to prepare or update your documents and empowers you to start the discussion today before it's too late. With that, I would like to introduce our facilitator today and invite him, along with our panelists, up to the front. As Little Tokyo Service Center's Director of Service Programs, Peter G. leads service programs core to the organization's mission and roots. Please join me in welcoming Peter, who will introduce our panelists. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Charlene. And I'm going to invite the panelists on up. Before I do that, I just wanted to say a quick word of thanks because I think it's important to start out with thank yous. So I will really want to give our thanks to OCBC. So could we give it up for OCBC? I really next want to thank our colleagues at Keiro. So Charlene, Trent, Brendan, Makoto, Kent, Kiyomi, John. They started this project with some of our staff at LTSC, but I know a lot of people are pretty discouraged about the lack of community involvement. But I just am really amazed by some of the new young people coming into our organizations and how incredible they are and how much initiative they are to wanting to take care of our community. So if we could give it up to our colleagues at Keiro. And then I know, in addition to OCBC, our colleague Erin, who's doing the AV, if we could give it up to them. Erin. As well as my colleagues Matthew and Dina from LTSC. Let's give it up to them. So I kind of broke the dress code. I actually am wearing my Keiro t-shirt, Japanese t-shirt, because I wanted to communicate to you that for Keiro, for Iyashi Care, for Little Tokyo Service Center, for Okapika, there's a rich continuum of organizations that are here to help all of us age in place well in our communities. And so the hope of today's conversation is to start a conversation about something that a lot of us don't like to talk about, but it's something that's really relevant and timely. So I first want to introduce my colleague. And so for folks of us, people that are listening through the web stream, my colleagues are going to drop the link of the bios. And then in your packets, if you open your packets, you'll see bios of all the people that are here today. And so for people here, this is like this green packet. And so the first person is probably does not need an introduction, but Diana Ono is co-president of Project Kokoro. So let's give it up to Diana. Jiwei Park is a clinician at Okapika. Let's give it up for Jiwei. Also someone that does not need an introduction in the Nikkei community, John Nakaki, who's been at Keiro since 2009. And then my other colleague who just joined LTSC about a year ago, Dina Umeda, who's a Changing Tides Assistant Outreach Coordinator. Let's give it up for Dina. So in your packet, you'll also see first steps in advanced planning. And it's going to be something that we'll be referring to throughout the workshop, and we'll kind of go over some key pieces of this towards the end of it. Because the real goal of today is to have our panelists talk about how they started these difficult conversations with themselves and in the community. So I'm going to just have an opening introduction question to the panelists. What does too late or before it's too late mean to you? Can you talk about a time when you felt either of these sentiments? And I'm going to turn things over to my colleague Jiwei first.
Hello everyone. Thank you for inviting me to join your special event. For me, because I see clients who, when you lose a loved one, or in the process of losing a loved one, you have a lot of grief and loss you have to deal with. But then on top of that, you have to go through those documents. That means maybe too late. So hopefully today, while we're doing this conversation, okay, maybe I could prepare better because it.
Can you turn the volume up a little bit?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So when you go through those difficult moments, then you know that your loved one's wishes and how you would like to care for them. So hopefully this time will kind of start a good conversation.
Hello? Okay. For me, I think before it's too late means when your parents are older and there's a life-changing health event, like my mom in her 80s was getting dementia, and now she's 94, she's still with us, but we didn't really talk to her to say, oh, Mom, what would you like after, for your service or funeral? So now my siblings will probably have to guess, okay, Mom wanted this or wanted that, but, if we had something like this in place, we would have known what she would have wanted for her own end of life. And for my father, he passed away last year. He was 95, but he was, very with it. So he kind of told us what he wanted. And I think what really helped my family, my siblings, Yashi Care, which is part of Keiro, is a palliative care program that we actually we signed up when my parents were in their 90s because my dad had a fall. He had to retire at 92, couldn't drive. So Dr. Yanami, Japanese speaking doctor, came to the house, talked to the family, and kind of asked my dad in Japanese. My dad's bilingual, but Japanese was his first language. So he was able to talk to him in Japanese, his true feelings, like, shikata ga nai, I know I have to quit, and, what should we do for the future? So for the doctor to be able to communicate in his first language with my father, it was really helpful for the kids. And, my dad lived another 3 years, happy, and, I think he lived the last few years how he wanted to live. So if anybody has a life-changing, problem or event for their parents, don't hesitate to sign up for Keiro's Iyashi Care. And they have some pamphlets both in Japanese and English. So it's good for Japanese speaking, but they take English speaking too. So for the people like my age, if you need to talk about your situation with your family, the social worker comes in, the doctor's there, the 24-hour nurse. It's like a second set of eyes for your family. You still keep your primary doctor, but Iyashi Care comes in and helps. And then if you have to transition to hospice, they'll help you with that. So I really, really advocate for Keiro's Iyashi Care. It helped my family. And I've referred many of our OCBC members, and they agree too. So that's do it now. Like, I'm going to tell my kids what my plans are so that when it's time, they'll know. Thank you.
Hello, Keiro did not pay her for the endorsement. Thank you very much, Diana. Before it's too late, I think one of the things you think about when you lose a loved one is, I wish I could have done more. I wish I would have said something. I wish I would have helped more. I wish I could have been there. And if you look back, yeah, you probably had that opportunity. So if we have anything, or if we could pass on anything for the next generation or the generations that are going to follow us, it could be maybe, I shouldn't, you can't ask somebody to care more, but maybe just make the decision simpler. Technology-wise, it's times have changed a lot since many of us were young. And just getting the conversation going is something that's very important, and I think we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But before it's too late, just think about all the things that you would want and try to apply that to your loved ones or the people in your community.
Hello? Hi. For me, before it's too late means I think a lot of different things, like obviously like there are a lot of emotional things that you wish that you could have done, like you wish you could have talked to them more, but when I was younger, my father passed away, and that's unexpected. He was very young, he was in his 50s, and you never really expect that to happen. So it's really important to start the process of planning, just even if you think you're really healthy, just because you never know what can happen. It was really difficult for my mother when my father passed away because she was a Japanese immigrant and he had handled a lot of the things for her. So there wasn't a lot of planning in place before he passed. So there was a lot that she had to learn on her own. And I think watching her do that made me realize how important it is to start the planning process now. Like what if my mother passes away soon, or what if I even pass away? I need to have a plan set in place so that she doesn't have to stress out about it later as well. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for answering those questions, and for people for, we're going to try to really model like vulnerability, and I think my colleagues are going to share a little bit about their own stories throughout this entire workshop. The next question that we have is one that talks a little bit about like the stressors around loss. And so we're really curious if people can kind of maybe share about the stressors they either see as a clinician or personally have experienced when dealing with loss. And are there any kind of cultural factors that influence how families approach advanced planning? And how do you recommend dealing with that? And so we'll just kind of go down the line again.
The Japanese American or Asian American, we have a different generations consisting whole family. So, and also when you're married to other person, the other persons, when they came into the state or born here, or how many generations living here, it affects all the communication style or the values we have for the laws or planning. So some people may think planning may invite death. That kind of myth we have. So, okay, those difficult questions or difficult areas of life, we don't talk about it because it may actually happen. But it will surely come. Yeah, like we cannot really pass through death. So it will always come, we don't know when it will come. So it's better to have a plan, but then our resistance to talk about it, and also the younger generation to talk about asking questions to your parents will be, okay, do you want me to go? So those little bit of tension depending on what kind of relationship you had before. Those questions are very difficult. So culturally, how we've been communicating before actually impacts the difficult questions like advance directives or will, if we have to put it. Then those also sibling relationship also comes out too. And how you wanted to care for your parents, or how you want to do like funerals, those things always become very difficult. So as a parent, it will be, even though it's hard to start a conversation, that will really decrease stress on your children. And also, right now, if you're living close, that's still difficult, but if they're living far like East Coast and somewhere, it becomes even more difficult to communicate because it will be a lot of misunderstanding along the way. So putting in the paper will be very good. So I would really stress on the communication because it will reflect whatever your communication style has been. This experience can be a positive one too. Actually, it will be a time of reconciling whatever difficulty you went through. Also, caring moment can be a good experience for you too. So it's not just a negative, it will be a positive experience for you. And the anxiety comes when we don't know what's going to happen. When we feel like we are losing control. But when we actually plan it, our anxiety could go less and less. So that will be also good for our mental health too.
So I think talking to family and friends now is a good thing. Most of us probably have a will or an advance directive, but there's another document called post, and I'm not legally, I don't understand that, but maybe Peter, you could say that, talk about having a post, because I know my parents have one, but that was because of Yashicare. But I think I should have one too, correct?
Yeah, we'll go over some of the documents later, but a pulse is like something that could be with an advance directive. And a lot of times a pulse happens when a medical provider will sign specific orders for someone that has a serious illness or people are getting close to the end of life. And so that's like one way to think about a pulse. I used to work briefly as a registered nurse. So just to give you an example, right, is if someone has a serious illness or is end of life, and the ambulance comes, having the pulse on the refrigerator is really helpful because the ambulance will be able to know what kind of orders and how people will want things to happen. Because a lot of times someone may not want certain life-sustaining measures taken, and that will all kind of be on the pulse. So the pulse is kind of like a tool to help communicate wishes across things. But we'll go over a little bit of some of the documents towards the tail end of this. But I think maybe Diana, I think one of the things it's really great that you've had the courage to kind of talk about this with your loved ones. And so maybe if you want to talk more about how you're able to talk about this with your family, and especially given that in the Nikkei community, a lot of times. So just a quick question, how many people in the audience have all of their documents in order and have had all the conversations that they wanted to have about what they would want if they were to die? Just a quick poll if you want to raise your hand high. Oh, this is a pretty healthy amount. There's also a lot of people that haven't raised their hands. And so I think a lot of pieces that are really important in the NEET community is sometimes it's really hard for us to kind of talk about these things and start the conversation. So Diana, like maybe if you want to share more about how you like kind of started that with your own caregiving experience.
Yeah, so it was hard because my dad is more Japanese than American, but like I said, without Iashi care, I wouldn't have probably been able to talk to him about that. So Dr. Yanami would come and get to know my dad and talk to him. And then my kids seeing how my husband Russ and I took care of his mom, not physically take care, but we took care of things, you know, the documents, the health. I think they're learning, but we do still need to talk to them about our, you know, wishes. And like Dina was saying, it makes it easier for the kids to know what we want, and then, you know, they won't be stressed on how we want to be in a care home or in a residential, or eventually we're going to be somewhere, and I would like to stay at home and, you know, live my last life at home, but that might not work. So if I have something in place, then it'll make a decision for them easier.
I think a lot of us, our learning process, growing up is, doing what our parents, taught us how to do or set examples for. And for my parents, they were pretty Japanese. The shigata ganai and gaman. And I would ask my dad, who had diabetes, heart problems, always high blood pressure. How you doing, Dad? Fine. Great. And I would just go on my merry way. He had a heart attack and was in a coma for 3 months before he passed away. So I never really got a chance to talk to him about how he really felt. My mom, as you know, gaman. This is just the way it is, and I grew up going through the camp experience, the racism, and everything else. I got through that. I will get through this. Don't worry about me. I, on the other hand, have definite, I shouldn't say wishes, but yeah, I guess wishes on where I want to go, how I want to get there. And as long as, and it's pretty simple stuff. It's not difficult at all. And my wife and I have things in place. We just have to make sure that, again, the communication is going to the kids and they accept it. My youngest daughter is, kind of like grandpa. I don't want to hear about this. I don't, if you talk about it, it's going to happen. I said, oh, that's a good approach. My oldest daughter is really wrapped up in what she does, and she spends a lot of time off the clock working with church groups, and it's almost like you didn't want to impede on her time and what is important to her. But recently I had a little bit of a medical scare, so I got, kind of on the ball and updated the trust and everything just to make sure that everything was in place in case I didn't come out of the surgery. And everything was, and we got together at Thanksgiving, and I said, hey, I got to have the surgery, and it'll be fine, don't worry about me. However, just in case, we've got these things set up, so this is how you approach it. And not a lot of detail, this is, where you find everything, but it is in place. And that was just kind of entering the conversation, and it went okay. But I know there are a lot of situations. I have a very large extended family, And it's hard and very hard to talk about losing a parent for, my cousin's kids and all. And kids don't really want to talk about it because that's their life is, growing up with the parents. So, yeah, it's something that needs to be done. It's easy if you have open lines of communication. If you don't, there's other ways to do it, and I think we'll get into some of those processes.
I know that earlier I said that it's important to have all these things set in place, and it is, but I don't really have any of my stuff set in place. And whenever my mom brings it back, I do have that same reaction, like, don't talk about it. You're gonna live forever because I love you so much, and you're never gonna die. And I can hope and pray for that all I want, but like the reality is that my mom will pass away one day, and I'm very grateful to her for being open to having this conversation, because I think before my father passed away, it was a scarier topic for her, and I think now that because she had gone through all the stress of having to figure out what to do after he passed away, I think she understands, like, I don't want my daughters to have to experience that when I pass away. So she's always talking about it, not always, but like she'll bring it up when I go see her, because she lives a little further away from me. But she'll say, this is how I want to die, this is where I would like to be buried. She wants me to take her ashes and go out to the ocean and dump them in the ocean because she loves the ocean. And I think that's such a beautiful thing, but it's always so scary to hear that. But she also has set up her will, and has a life insurance policy. I think she's also scared that me and my sister are gonna die, so she put life insurance policies on us as well, because there's so much that you can do to prepare, just in case. Yeah, it's such a scary thing, and I am an incredibly superstitious person, but I think I'm just very grateful that she has the foresight to think about that for us and for her new husband as well.
Thank you so much. So it really does seem that there's, some of the things that I heard is people kind of went through personal experiences of loss or caregiving that kind of prompted some of the conversation to happen. And then there's been a few situations where folks have been taking the initiative on their own to be proactive. And G spoke a little bit about the cultural dynamics that sometimes make these conversations hard. And there's lots of different feelings of avoidance, anxiety, discomfort, this other element of not wanting to talk about it because it will happen, right? So this element of superstition. The other thing that I heard is it sometimes may feel like it's a burden to bother someone to talk about it now, because people are kind of busy living their lives right now, right? And so there's a lot of obligation that people have going on that makes it feel like it's, I don't want to put pressure on them to have these conversations because they're too busy with work or it makes them uncomfortable. And then something that I noticed is that a lot of the conversations have been maybe one-way conversations, but not necessarily two-way conversations. And so it's someone telling something that they want, but then not necessarily a conversation the other way around. So this next question kind of gets into digging a little bit deeper on that. And so we all acknowledge it's a really difficult conversation, but what are some strategies that you all have to just get the conversation started with loved ones in the first place? Some folks have kind of mentioned it, but I know there's additional tools that they felt would be really helpful to share with the body. So I'm going to turn things over to my colleague, and then we'll kind of go down the line from there.
conversation, one of important thing will be, it's so easy to get passive aggressive. Don't want to talk about it, but then when we talk about it, it comes out very strongly. So we would like to we call it assertive conversation, that you assert, you tell what you want it to be, but in a gracious way. So you could describe first what's happening. So, okay, we need to do this. And then following by what I feel. I feel this one is very important. So you're inviting conversation, not making statements. So you invite the conversation, from there it will be making the difficult conversation a little bit easier. So you just come out, okay, this will be very difficult conversation. So you get this bottom open. So it's not, it may not be pleasant, or it could make, some of you make it uncomfortable, uneasy, you want to run away, but yeah, it'll be difficult. But we have to do it. And then start from there, be honest, and then tell everybody this will be the safe place. You could tell what you feel, and you could tell what you want, and then this won't be the last conversation. We're just starting. So you don't need to conclude the conversation in one setting. So you could start and keep thinking about it. You could revise along the way. So that will be the starting point. So I will just let others kind of fill in after real conversation.
For me, my dad was kind of like John's dad, oh, I'm fine, but towards maybe 89, 90, I started going to the doctor's appointment with him, because every day he would say, oh, this hurts, that hurts, but when he goes to the doctor, the doctor says, how are you? I'm fine. Then I have to say, Dad, but remember this, that, and then things come out. So, they want to act like they're fine, but really, when you get into your 90s, you have a lot of things that you can't do for yourself. So that open conversation, maybe at the doctor's office it starts, and then when you get home, you talk to your siblings. Dad needs this, Dad needs that, and try to get things going. I think John has a good tool, because Japanese Americans tend to not want to bother family, but they should. I mean, that's what families are for, right?
Well, it's not like, bothering families, but I don't know why this came up, but I was thinking about the class in college that I feared the most. And I don't know if anybody else had this experience, but did anybody have to take public speaking? And did you like it? Well, the one thing I learned in that class was you have to have something like an icebreaker. So you get people involved, or at least thinking about something, or whatever subject it is that you want to talk about. And at Keiro, well, we didn't invent this, but this is really something neat. It's called the Death Deck. And it's not quite as macabre or morbid as it might sound. What it is, it's an actual card game. And there's rules and everything to it. But you answer questions, and you have partners, and there's scoring, and I have no idea how to play. But what it does is it initiates a conversation. There's two types of cards. There's one that is gold, and it's an open-ended question. And there's others that are purple, which are multiple choice. So if you're sitting down at the table with people that you want to talk to, and everybody's kind of quiet, it'd be an idea to start out with something like,
regarding your inevitable future demise, in what area are you most prepared or least prepared? Okay, so whether they want to talk about it or not, they're thinking about that because you just posed the question. And how about, let's see. Oh, here you go. Now this is a good one. DIY. Do it yourself. If you could plan your own celebration of life party, where would it take place and what would be the theme? So this is kind of stepping into that area. And do one more of these open-ended ones. This is called time well spent. You've just received a prognosis of 6 months to live, but you feel pretty good. How do you spend your time? So that one's a little heavier, but these are questions that are going to make people focus on the subject. And so multiple choice wise, here's one that kind of fits. Which of these phrases do you feel is the worst to say to someone after the death of a loved one? A, I know just how you feel. B, they're in a better place now. Now, she got the knife. And one more, multiple choice. What kind of griever are you? Are you open, not afraid to talk, pray, meditate, cry, or whatever helps? Are you B, distractor, keep busy, and focus on the projects and tasks at hand? Or C, a wreck, seriously someone who may need to have somebody watch 24/7. So, this is the death deck, and we just happen to have some in the back at the Keiro table there, if anybody is interested. And it is a very, very good tool, very simple. And again, it is a card game. It has rules, it has points, you have winners and losers, but you don't need winners and losers, because as long as the discussion starts, then everyone's a winner.
I think I'll definitely pick a death deck up before I go. I think for me, definitely making something competitive will make me want to do it a little more. But I don't know, it's hard for me to give a good icebreaker because what my mom likes to do, is just to say, well, I'm gonna die, so we're gonna have to talk about this. She's just really blunt about it, and I think the best thing I can do is just try my best to have the conversation with her without being scared or stressed out.
Play the game.
We should play the game together, yeah. I think that'll be a great way to just break the ice. It's hard because you don't think it's gonna happen, but it could. So it's nice to have a game like this to make it a lot more lighthearted and easy. So I'll definitely pick one up before I head out today.
So it sounds like the death deck is going to come to Project Kokoro, and that's going to be one of the activities. But some of the things that I heard, kind of building on that, is using different tools to open the conversation, right? The other thing that I heard is changing how we have the conversation, right? Julie spoke a little bit about trying to focus on having assertive conversations versus being like passive aggressive. Which is kind of a normal tendency for a lot of us, right? Especially folks around things that are uncomfortable. But just also remembering that just starting the conversation can be a victory. You don't have to like have the conversation complete, but just starting it is an initial piece. You know, the other thing that I thought that Diana brought up that was really good is how do you kind of maybe work in the conversation with someone else? So when she talked about going to the doctor, right, and kind of using that as an opportunity to have a conversation as a caregiver and her loved one and a partner, because sometimes people react a lot differently in front of a doctor versus other people. And that's some of the beauty of what Diana was talking about earlier about Ayashi care. Right, and the power of having a culturally competent physician that really is able to have the right type of conversation. A lot of times we think that palliative care is only something like towards end of life, but actually, you'll learn more if you pick up the Ayashi care brochure that any kind of like serious illness or chronic condition is when you can invite palliative care in. And just because, as Diana mentioned, just because you have a palliative care provider involved in your care, it doesn't mean you give up your primary care physician, right? If they really work as a team to support you. So those are just some of the things that I heard in the responses from the questions. I'm gonna maybe put our colleague John on the spot. Hello?
Hello.
There.
Switch up the microphones. Oh, where's that?
We just changed the batteries, that's,
I think it actually all might be down.
Oh, the whole thing. Hello? Oh, Aaron?
Hello? Hello?
there you go.
Oh, there we go. Okay. So I wanted to put our colleague John on the spot, because something that my colleagues at Keiro were sharing was, they're like, John told us like how he wants to die. And so, I'm just curious, John, like what kind of what made you want to talk about that with your colleagues at Keiro? And maybe you could share a little bit about just the background and the context.
When the kids were younger, probably late grammar school, again, I come from a very large extended family, so we had a lot of kids around, and every year the family would go on a vacation to Mammoth, week, 10 days, and we'd fish and hike and ride horses, and the kids would play all over, and it was a lot of fun. My older cousins and I would go fishing. And this has got to be at least 20, 25 years ago. And I was telling my cousins after a day of fishing that, I tell you, this is how I want to die. I want to be fishing at Convict. Backside of Convict where the water flows in, and I want to be there about 10 in the morning, so it's not too hot. I want to make sure there's a breeze behind so you can cast the way out, and I want to hook a big fish. I mean like a big brown. And as soon as I hook that fish, what I want is to have either a big heart attack or a stroke. And the fish is going to try to take off. And of course, my hand will still be holding onto the rod. So the fish is going to take me out into the lake. About the middle of the lake, things will, start to loosen up a little bit. I'll release the rod and sink to the bottom of the lake. And so that makes it better for everybody, don't you think? The fish gets away, I suffer no pain, and I'm in a place that I would really like to be. And that's, I told the kids and they're like, Dad. But anyway, that'd be very, very nice. And for me, there was a question, when we were kind of prepping for this on, how do you want to die and what do you want to do? And again, I'd like to die outside, either playing golf or fishing or hunting, not hunting, I don't hunt anymore. Working in the yard, just doing something outside, and I'd rather not spend any time in a facility because I've seen too many people, pass away, in a hospital, a nursing home, and it just wasn't good. When I was a kid, my uncle, oldest in the family of 10, oldest uncle had a heart attack. He was at Good Sam, and he was on a ventilator, which I didn't know what a ventilator was. So I went with my mom to visit him, and it was a traumatic experience because it was just not good, because he was being kept alive by artificial pump. And every time it would pump, his chest would go up, and it was just terrible. So again, if it's up to me, outside, fishing would be good, golf would be good, working in the yard, okay. But as long as it's outside and it doesn't take too long.
So I think one of the great things that John kind of shared and encouraged was kind of outlining what he would want, right? And from that you can kind of gather, like, there's some core pieces that being in a facility, and that's not what he wants. Being put on a ventilator, that's like something that he doesn't want. And even though he can't plan exactly how it's all going to happen, by him being able to articulate his ideal situation, you can kind of pick up some themes about like what he would want versus what we traditionally think happens towards the end of life. The other just kind of concept that I just want to also introduce, right, is a lot of times people think about facilities, right? But there's also choice around doing like home hospice and being able to like die at home in your home, right? And that's a lot of times an option that we don't talk a lot about, but it's like a choice that people have, and there's ways and a pathway to make that happen. So something we were talking about when we were just kind of catching up was, Diana's kind of in this sandwich situation, right? Where, she's been caregiving for her parents and, has been supporting the family. I also know that Diana's like here opening up the gym on Monday nights for the women's basketball. Like, she's super involved in OCBC. And so I guess the question that I asked her is, what kind of conversations have you had with your kids, especially recently having gone through the caregiving process and still being a caregiver? Like, how do you kind of approach having these conversations differently with your own kids? And what advice do you have to people in the room that might be hesitant to talk about their kids about this?
Yeah, I've been focusing more on my parents, so now I have to think about me and my kids. So having this event today is really kind of opening it up for our generation. I see a lot of my peers, and we don't really talk about our kids about this, but now I know it's important. And so thank you to Keiro and Changing Tides, LTSC, for having this conversation for my generation. But like Dina, she's even younger than my kids. She's only 25, but she's already experienced things that we haven't experienced. So having these kind of talks and forums makes it easier for everybody. And maybe next time we gear it towards the next generation, because I see most of us are, my generation. So the next one could be with the younger ones, so that they could say, hey mom, what do you want to do? Instead of us saying, I want this, but this is what I would like you said, make it a friendly conversation, right? So I talk to a lot of young kids, and they are busy, everybody's busy, but if you don't make the time, it's never gonna come up. So, and then language, some are Japanese speaking, so if it's hard to talk, then bring in somebody to help facilitate the conversation.
Yeah, so one of the things I hear Diana asking, and actually this looks like a young audience to me, Diana, so this is a pretty young group we have here. But I guess maybe the request from a lot of people, and the parents and to their kids that may be adults, is we want the adult kids to take a little bit more initiative and a little bit more courage to have the conversations, right? To make the time.
Yeah, make the time.
And I think, time is one of the most precious resources that we have. But what I'm hearing from Diana is when people can make the time to have the conversations. And so that's maybe something we could talk a little bit more about how to get more adult children to take more initiative. And that's probably like a different conversation that needs to happen in multiple different spaces. The question that I have for Dina is, you spoke a little bit about this, but you're really unique in that you have like a specific life experience that has kind of changed like how your relationship with your mom and your sister. So, how would you, like, to people in the room that have kids in their 20s or 30s, like, how, what advice do you have for them to kind of, like, initiate things? And then what's your request to your other other people your age to kind of have these kind of conversations?
It's hard to get people to want to have these conversations. Like we've been talking about it this whole panel because it's so scary to think about death. But I think one of the main reasons why my mom is so eager to have this conversation because she knows how hard it was, and I think I'm more willing to have the conversation because I watched her go through it and I saw how difficult it was for her to figure out all this stuff. If you don't have the conversation now, the amount of work you have to do after the death happens is very difficult, and you have to do it while you're grieving. And my mom was doing it all while she was trying to figure out all the language around it, because English was her second language. She was born in Japan. But I think, English is my first language, and I don't know if I can even do it. I think something that I can do to help encourage my friends or my peers to be able to have this conversation. It's hard to get people not to be scared, but I think just making them realize that it's not that difficult to have a conversation is great. Having a little game like the Death Deck, I think making that popular amongst my age group, I think would be a great way to get us to initiate the conversation so it's not as difficult for our parents. And maybe even like thinking about our own life plan is also a way that we can make it easier for us to talk to our parents about it. Making a plan for ourselves, because our parents can die, but we can also die, which I don't want to think about. I don't think I'm gonna die soon, but I can't predict the future. Yeah, I have to be able to make it easier for my mom if something like that happens. So, just making sure that we all know that something can happen. I think it's scary, and you don't want to think about it, but I think just normalizing it with things like little games or just little conversations can help out a lot.
I want to have just a few more words. As a parent, if there are any parents, we live our lives how to live. Yeah, we try to be a good example and teach them how to live life. And so as a parent, we have an obligation to teach them how to die well. So preparing. So as a parent, I think we have to first make an initiative how to prepare, which is very difficult. But I think just inviting them, I would like, this is my wish, and it's okay, no CPR for me. It'll break my, the bone. So whatever reason, just you let them know, just make that even more memorable than you don't want them to remember just pain and loss, and then they have to go through this again. Another paper, another decision. So you just make some decisions for them, and with your wish, And also you are somebody who need care when you get older, then you just let other loved ones know how you would like to be cared for. And for younger generation, or it doesn't need to be younger generation, but you need to care for somebody, then just ask them, how would you like me to care for you? It doesn't have to be, okay, death preparation. But whoever, you could just address that, okay, how would you like to care for you? Or how would you like for me to remember you? So those wishes, while they're still in the right mind, not just a confused state, if you get most out of it, then it will be also cherished memory too. You had a pretty good conversation, clear conversation. Because once they're either sick or they're losing their cognitive ability, it's hard to carry the conversation. So just to make the day while they're healthy or right mind, just take advantage of those opportunities. So that would be my little kind of encouragement, kind of appeal to you to prepare for those times.
Yeah, this is really, really incredible. And I think like the main thing that I kind of took away is trying to have the conversations when things are going well, when things aren't in a crisis. That seems to be like one of the main themes. You know, before we kind of move to the closing question, it's just we wanted to give a little bit of ample time for question and answer from the audience. I'm just curious, Julie, if you could talk a little bit about your request for all of us to take care of our mental health and how we can take care of our mental health, like no matter what age we are. And I think especially at Okapika, I'll go into some of the community resources a little bit later, but like why it's really important for us to kind of be proactive about taking care of our mental health, and what does that look like here in a community setting. And then I think other people should like Diana, others should kind of also chime in too.
So the healthy, we wanted to be healthy all the time, hopefully all the way through. So we have physical body to take care of, and also we have a mind which we want it to be sharp as long as we can, right? And also we have also spiritual side of it. We have also social side of health too. So I think starts from mental health starts from me having as much as physical body healthy, like taking good sleep, having good nutrition, and those things. We care for ourselves. And then other mental issues will be, you may notice that after COVID and during COVID, a lot of anxiety, depression, and then young people still having social anxiety. They don't know how to talk to other people, how to make friends. And they're so used to on screen, so real life conversation is hard. So it's hard to make full sentence. They have all the small letters, they talk and then they didn't finish with the period. So they don't know how to talk to other people. So I see more and more, even kids, when they get made, they will have an anger tantrum. They don't know how to say what they want or what they need even. And also, the adolescent, they don't know how to make friends. They get so anxious, so nervous, which is part of is a very normal thing to kind of talking to for other people, meeting new people is all, being nervous is natural, but then they go too far. They isolate themselves, they withdraw, and then some kids don't come out of their room, they just play games all the time. They have virtual friends, but there's no no real name friends, meeting face to face. So our anxiety, depression, it just prominent in our society. So for even today's topic, the anxiety comes from kind of fear of losing control. Oh, I don't know what's gonna happen. And we like to control, right? As a parent, we like to control our kids, we like to control our spouses, and we like to control circumstances. But when we feel like it's out of control, we get anxious, and we don't know. So one of the good things will be prepare. What if this happens? What am I gonna do? So we kind of plan ahead, and while we're doing that, okay, this will happen, then it will be easier for us to cope during those difficult times. And also building social support is very good, and we talked about with our panel before, the young people, when there's a lot of anxiety, depression, the tendency is to isolate themselves. They cannot come out of their rooms. They don't communicate with parents, and they don't communicate with friends, and then they feel lonely. That's why they don't come out. And so one interesting thing is to not feel lonely. You have to have a courage to come out and meet other people and socially engage with other people. That's one of our social heart needs will be met by meeting actual people. So I think I really like the organization having different programs, meeting people and volunteering and doing sports together. Those things will really help your mental health, the social part of things.
Yeah, and Diane, I feel like you should chime in too, because I think we talked a little bit about social isolation, and maybe if there's things that you want to really encourage the OCBC community to be doing to take care of their mental health.
There's two parts to this. The seniors need socialization, so we have crafts, we have mahjong, we have Buddhist study classes, but I think we need to focus also on the next generation to get them more involved in volunteerism. I think our generation, a lot of us like to volunteer, but the next generation, they're too busy. I don't know if it's busy or they have other things. So if we could get them to volunteer, and I was talking to Joey, that it's good for them to volunteer because then they're not they don't think of just, I need this, I need that. When you start to volunteer, you feel like you're giving back to the community or to whatever group. So if we could try to get the young ones to somehow get involved, I think it'll help their mental health. And maybe the Japanese word ikigai, you have to have a purpose in life. So if we ourselves have a purpose in life, that's good, but the young people need to find some kind of purpose. And it could be maybe volunteering with sports coaching or helping an education group. Like if you want to be a teacher, you do part-time volunteer work. There's all kinds of avenues, but we just need to get them to get out of their shell. And then maybe we'll get the next generation to help all these different nonprofits. So I think her group, your organization can help the young people as well as our generation. But mental health is very important.
Thanks so much, Diana. So before we move to the question and answers, the closing question that we have is, what's one thing you hope our attendees take away from today's conversation?
We could just do it by all the preparation instead of only thinking about it here. We could just start the number one. Then there is a saying, once you start, it's all halfway done already. So hopefully today it'll kind of spur you to start the conversation.
Fill out this paper, and then I think it'll be a good start. Because the questions on here are very, direct and easy to follow. So if we all fill this out and share it with our family, I think that's a really good start.
I think everybody should just realize your mortality. And once you do that, then everything else will fall into place because, like Diana said, go ahead and take a look at the paper. Pretty much everything's there. And quite honestly, there are people in the audience today that could help you with questions that you have on lots of things. So, yes, hopefully we all live forever, but let's not hope for that.
I think something I wish that everyone takes away is that it's not a scary conversation to have, and it's about celebrating the life of your parent or of yourself, like to have this conversation. Me being able to have a conversation with my mom is me respecting her and her wishes, and because I love her so much, it shouldn't be scary because it's what she wants to do, and that is so beautiful that she wants to have that conversation. So it's a celebration, not really like a goodbye. It's to honor and remember someone.
I think everyone in the room wants you to go home with Dina, because that's a really great sentiment. So the things that I heard is just to start the conversation, start the paperwork. And so Keiro prepared a really great worksheet that I'll kind of go over in a second. And then realize our mortality. But the other thing is that there's people that are actually around you that are probably a great resource to you. So whether it's a neighbor, someone else here at OCBC, people probably have been through a lot, and crowdsourcing the information is just really a great resource. So there's a lot of resources just here in the room outside of organizations. And then the other piece is not to have approach the conversation from a scary point, but actually a way to kind of celebrate someone's life and to kind of really take that approach to the conversation. In the handout that you see that Keiro prepared, if you just want to pull it out, it really starts out with some prompts to start the conversation. I think when we think of advanced planning, we automatically kind of go to all the documents, but as Jue, as Diana, as John and Dina mentioned, a lot of the conversation starts by you getting clarity about what you want. John was really specific and had the courage to kind of share with us like what that could look like. But a lot of the conversation really isn't necessarily just jumping into the documents and getting all that stuff done. It's getting clarity about what you want. I'm gonna just give like a one-line sentence of some of the important documents, and the group, there's a lot of people in this room that are already prepared, so it's gonna be repetitive, but I say this just for folks that don't know some of the required important documents that are really helpful. So Keiro on their website have a sample of an advanced healthcare directive, right? So this is a legal document that outlines your medical care preferences, and it also appoints someone to make healthcare decisions for you if you're not able to do so. So that's like what the advanced healthcare directive is. And there's a template that Keiro has on their site, and you don't necessarily need to go to a lawyer or a professional to get this done. That's like something that you can kind of do yourself. Diana mentioned something earlier about a pulse, and this is an additional document that accompanies an advanced medical directive. And a lot of times it happens like for someone that has a very serious illness or is close to end of life. And actually the great thing that Diana just threw over to me, right, is if you go to the back and pick up the Ayashi Care documents, there's actually like a specific flyer just for the pulse. The durable power of attorney, so that's like the financial one, right? It authorizes someone you trust to manage your financial affairs if you are not able to do so. So as John mentioned, if like someone's on a ventilator and is incapacitated and cannot make a decision for themselves, the durable power of attorney, the financial one, will allow someone to make those financial decisions for you. A living trust. This is a specific type of a legal arrangement that holds and manages your assets and distributes them after your death without going through the public probate process. So this is like something that you could just do while you're alive, and you could outline like what happens after you die. A last will and testament, that's like a legal document that outlines how you want your assets to be distributed, and you could also outline who will care for dependents after your death. And so you can have a living trust and a living will, a living trust and a last will at the same time. But just to kind of clarify, the last will takes place after your death. And the last will also is what you go through the probate process, the public courts. And a lot of times the last will is simpler and cheaper and more affordable. But in general, it's always good to try to have a living trust and a last will. And those two in combination could really support you. The last kind of document, second to last, is a long-term care plan, insurance plan, right? So this is like a policy that will help cover the cost of services like nursing homes, assisted living, and in-home care when you can no longer care for yourself. And the big pitch to people that are starting out their life after college is to invest in these sooner rather than later, right? Because the sooner you invest in a long-term care policy, it's cheaper earlier on, right? Versus getting it later on. And the other thing that we put in there is a self-care plan, because it's really important for you to identify resources and people and organizations that can support you no matter what, right? So if you live in Orange County, you're really lucky, you have OCAPICA here. There's their brochures in the back that talk a little bit about OCAPICA programming. You have like OCBC here, Diana and others are crushing it with Project Kokoro. They're a really great resource. But you also have people like Keiro, Iyashi Care, and even for us at Little Tokyo Service Center, the support that we get through Keiro allows us to provide mental health support and case management virtually or by phone for Orange County residents. So those are additional resources that are resources to you that are that you should all kind of put into your plan. So self-care plan could just have a list of people that you want to call in case there's an emergency. It could be resources like the organizations that I mentioned. So I think we're going to turn things over to question and answer right now. And so Charlene and others are going to grab a few mics and if people want to ask specific questions.
If anyone has any questions, they can raise their hand and bring over a mic.
I have a question, but I started this kind of weird hobby of collecting programs from people's funerals because I noticed that on the front of the funerals, their photos are probably the best pictures they've ever taken. And I want to make sure that my children pick the right picture. And also, generally, the program itself has sometimes their eulogies or their favorite songs. And it's an opportunity when I share these programs with my kids, it's an opportunity for me to talk to them about things that I would like to have in my service. And so I didn't realize it, but I have over 30 programs of friends, family, and relatives because I love the pictures on the front of the program. But it's also a way for them to say, oh, I didn't know you want this in your service. Or I have a favorite poem that I have. And so I have it in a folder, but I've never talked to them about it. But it was an opportunity when we looked at the picture to talk about some of the things that I.
Good idea. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Dorothy. Does anyone else have any questions on this?
There's one other thing I would add to this list of documents. We're all younger, we're all techie, we all have passwords, user IDs. If you were to go, like right now, your kids would have no access to any of your stuff. I have a brother right now who's end of life, and he is sharing with me all the websites, all the username, passwords. He's updated them, he's given me some old ones, and I'm like, what? And so he was one, when I was doing his taxes this year, he did everything online. He was paperless. I could have shot him for that. I could have done that earlier, because then I had to go find the website, find the username, the password, and pull out that 1099 when it could have been just mailed to me. I go, why did you do things paperless? So share with your kids now, where you hide all the passwords and make it a whole lot easier for them.
Good idea.
We're getting some really good advice. So it's like the programs for people that have passed are a really good opportunity to start a conversation. And then the other thing that will definitely add to the consider important documents is a password manager or some sort of place to store passwords. And that maybe just be a whole workshop that we could talk about with Project Kokoro later on about how we can, there's different tools that people can use, like a password manager, and then some people just like an old school, just like a notebook. But just that's really important to all have in one place. Diana mentioned she's like, no one's going to ask questions, and I was like, we can prove you wrong, Diana. There's more questions or comments from the
Raise your
audience.
hands. Oh, Tracy.
Is the durable power of attorney a form you can just pull off online? Or how legal is it?
So there are templates that you can use, for specifically the durable power of attorney for financial. So there are, you don't necessarily need like a lawyer to do things, but I do think, and this is just a plug later on for the caregiver conference that Keiro does, and it's going to be doing at Gardena in the fall. But there's really great legal resources that people should try to talk to now. And there's different packages that a lot of folks have that will include some things like this. But yeah, you don't necessarily need a lawyer to do a durable power of attorney for you. And we can kind of work with Keiro to send out a link to some templates if people in the audience would find it helpful.
This is in regards to that you said that post-care form is how?
The physician's orders for life-sustaining treatment, yes, the PULSE.
Is that PULSE? Is that kind of like a summary of your actual advanced care health directive?
So a lot of times, if you have a serious medical illness or you are end of life, the PULSE has to be signed by a physician or provider. And it may include specific things that might be in your advanced healthcare directive, like do not resuscitate or other kinds of things like that. But it could also include other kinds of specific physician orders. And it really is just like a template that lists all those things out in one place. And so, for instance, if an ambulance is picking you up, there'll be specific things that you may have, the physician will have ordered for your care because of your specific type of illness that will be on there. So yes, it can include stuff in your advanced healthcare directive, and it can also include other additional medical orders. And then just so folks know, PULSE, the forms and the terms all look very different in different states. So here in California, it's a PULSE. But let's say you might have a kid in where I just came from, New York, and it's called MOLSE. So there's different terms depending on the state specifically for these things, but they're all the same thing, that it's a physician, a summary of physician's orders for people that have a serious medical illness and or might be close to end of life. Did that answer your question?
So that's, you can use that in addition to your advanced healthcare.
Yeah. So you can have two, they're complementary to each other. Because, let's say an ambulance goes to your house, a lot of people won't have the advanced care directive, and all their stuff in one place. So that's why a lot of people recommend putting the pulse, on the refrigerator, so that if an ambulance were to come, you could just grab it and give it to the ambulance, who will then, give it to the hospital. Did that answer your questions?
And I just have another thing too, that for people that are aware, when emergency services come, they always ask what is the medication the person's on. And it's if you can keep an updated list right handy. Because one time they had come for my husband, and I have a list, I was panicked, I couldn't find the list. I had to go on the computer and pull it up and print it. Even though I did find it in my purse, but I didn't know. And I think that came in handy. When I even called my mother, luckily my mother had a list, so they just took the whole medicine off the hospital. But that's what they did, because we didn't have a list. And luckily she kept it all in one container. So if people can have their medication list ready to go updated too.
Yeah, that's another really good example of things we'll add to consider important documents, to have all your prescriptions listed out. And just speaking from my own personal experience, for instance, I had that for my dad, but my mom, it's been really hard because the way she organizes things is there's pills, bottles here, there, and so having everything in one place is always the best course. But in many situations, a lot of times people will just pull the pill box and take it out. But I think what also makes it hard right now is a lot of times people put pills in the boxes, of the different days of the week. So people that care, that might, your children might not actually know what medications those all are, right? So having it all listed down is another thing to definitely put in the important documents. Thank you for that.
I have a question. So when you have a living trust and you have a last will, durable power of attorney, advanced sculpture, okay, you have my mother and parents, they have a nice binder with all that information. Okay, so my father passed away. I didn't know what to do with that document. Can you maybe elaborate on or educate other people here, us, just because I have this document, what do you do with it? How do you execute something? When my mother comes and goes, she's the last one left. How do I execute this?
So the question that came up is it's good and all to have all these documents put together. You can put it in a binder, but what happens when you had to execute it? That was the question?
Correct.
Yeah. So that is probably a whole nother workshop in and of itself that we can, if I were, and my colleagues from Keiro should definitely come up to see, to chime in whatever, to add on to what I'm about to say. But, so, I'm very sorry that your father just passed away. So in general, that's another reminder that you can also have documents, but it's important to update them. Because, for instance, a lot of documents might have been done for a couple, and it might change if one of the spouses passes away. So that's one piece. The other piece too is that that's why specifically having a living trust is really important in addition to a last will and testament. Just because if you just have a living will, you have to go through the public process and the probate, and there's a whole series of steps that there's different fact sheets about what can be done to execute these documents, and that's a really bad answer just because it's a whole workshop content, but that's maybe something that we can follow up on. Does someone from Keiro want to chime in more about a more simpler answer to that? Don't worry, it's okay, we just
So I'll do my best to answer this. I am not an estate planning attorney. If we have someone in the audience, that'd be great. But from what I understand to be true is if you have your estate plan, which thank goodness your folks did, you would go back to the attorney who prepared that document. And then they would then work on the properties and allocating that to whoever is listed on the estate plan.
And I get this is another probably seminar that really needs to happen. But the lady in front of us just asked me, can I do this online by myself? It's like, well, if you have a personal document that you've created without an attorney, then what do you do with something like that, right? And so I'm a primary caregiver for my elderly mother. And so I'm kind of going through this, and there's a lot of things that, this is just the beginning, the starting line of this whole discussion, but there's so much more. And then what is it like to go through palliative care? What does it actually look like? What does hospice care actually look like? Because I went through that and it's nothing what's been discussed here. And it's a much more difficult situation. And like my father, just like John up there was explaining, like he had these aspirations of wanting to stay home and dying in a certain way. Well, my father didn't go that way. He struggled toward the end. It was unbelievably difficult to go through that because at the end we're like scrambling just to find like help, and no one was like, I had no education about that. And so that's something that I think a lot of the people here need to understand, that their kids, if they're your primary caregiver, they need to be prepared for that. Like boarding care. We had to like rush to get boarding care at the last, second. And my father was finally transferred, and he died the next day. Something like that.
Yeah, so I want to just acknowledge that a lot of the stuff that we're talking about can really vary by individual situations. And then the other piece I do really want to acknowledge is that there's a really broken continuum of care, and things like sometimes don't always seem like they're going to be. And just to give you like a personal example and why I feel like this is like super important is, I've been in social services like for 20 years, and then in my 30s, my husband got diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. And so, we kind of had to rush to get all this stuff done, right? That was like something that we had to do. And then I was, he wanted to die at home, and so we chose to go down the home hospice route. And everyone always just told me, don't worry, it's like you're gonna be like a Cadillac. Like when home hospice comes, like you'll be, like get all these resources, and it's gonna be, you'll get a lot of support. But when we came to home hospice, a lot of it was dependent on me and like me alone, right? And to be able to get additional support was like, it was really hard to find. So I think like the stuff that we're talking about right now, I don't want to totally like simplify the experience. It's in general, here in the United States, we aren't the strongest when we talk about end of life. And so these are some of the challenges and like why it's good for us to maybe do like an additional workshop, but also for us to kind of like share these stories with each other, because the experience that you had with your dad is like actually something that could be really helpful to other people here. And I think just even talking about that and getting some information from people that have gone through it is really important. So I think that's a good point that you bring up.
Thank you.
You suggested getting long-term care when you're young. Does long-term care really pay for itself? Some people say they don't use it at all. They just keep on living and then they just die.
For my case, my dad got his and my mom's probably when he was 70, 75, so it was expensive, but in the long run, when they became 90, 92, they both used it up. They were able to get money. We had home care for my mom for a while, and then they both went into residential care home. And the policy that they got, we were able to use to help pay for the residential care home. And we actually used it up, and then we had to pay out of pocket. I think if you're really wealthy, you probably don't need it. You have enough funds, but my parents both had it, so it really helped the kids financially. So it probably depends on each family's situation. I'm not sure if any insurance people are here, but.
Yeah, so in general, like, my colleagues from Keiro made a good disclosure, like, a lot of the stuff that we're giving is like educational, and none of us, like, are attorneys, or, like, brokers, and so I think it really kind of just depends. But I think the point is that, it could be one of the tools that may help financing care. It might help lessen the burden later on, but you know, like many things in life, we always just don't know how it's gonna happen, right? And that's like one of the challenges that we're in. I know we wanted to like leave some time for mingling and kind of talking, so I know there might be additional questions that we can like kind of do a little bit more informally, like as we mingle. But I just want to first, if we could just give a big round of applause for our panelists. We really want to thank everyone for attending, and we're asking if people could fill out a very brief anonymous survey. So if you can use your phone camera to scan the QR code on the screen, or go to Keiro's website, www.keiro.org/BITL survey to take the survey. Or if you need some help, you could just raise your hand and one of my colleagues in the audience will come help you out. We just want to remind you of some of the different resources that are here. You heard a little bit more about Capica, who also has brochures in the back. There's some brochures about LTSC. In addition, this was brought to you by our youth mental health program, Changing Tides. And so if you have youth and young adults in your life, ages between 18 to 35, we have an incredible therapy stipend program, and you can find out more through the brochures in the back. Yes, and my colleague Dina also works with my colleague Matthew from Changing Tides, who will be in the back. And he's also the one that was doing the simulcast for us, so thank you, Matthew. But we really just want to give a big round of applause to like everyone, all the organizations that put this together. And I realized we kind of ended with like some difficult questions. So let's definitely like stick around a little bit later and we can talk a little bit more about how things could be really different for folks. And if you didn't get to ask a question that if you didn't feel comfortable, we're going to be sticking around to talk a little bit more. But once again, let's give it up to everyone on the panel.